that. And again, thank you for being here. I'm going to do a brief little overview of the session and what we can expect today and some introductions, and then I will pass it off to Shakira to talk about the wonderful offerings of the Florida Lottery. So first, this session will talk about Bright Futures and the Gold Seal Scholarship opportunities to help prepare students for careers, as well as we'll learn about the value of those career maps that we'll focus on today and how we can use those career maps in your programs, as well as you'll be exposed to and gain a little bit of understanding about some different space careers. So, like I said, in just a second, I will shift to Shakira to give us kind of a welcome in and introduction to the Florida Lottery. And then we'll really dive into those STEM career maps, as well as an overview of some of those different careers in the space industry. And then we'll have some opportunities for a collaborative discussion. I know we have a small group, so it's okay if we don't have a ton of discussion, but we'll have some opportunities to process the maps and see how we can better help you to use these career maps in your program. And just before we kind of dive in, I'm Kayla, so I'm with Florida After School. I am our program and training specialist. And I have been so honored to be able to create these career maps through the generous support of the Florida Lottery. So without further ado, I will pass it to Shakira. Did you have slides, Shakira?
So I have a slide that I can share if
I'll add
it,
you as as a host.
okay.
There you go. You should be a co-host now. And confirm. There you go.
Yep. Sharing. Awesome. Can y'all see my screen?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, so the Florida Lottery is a proud funding source of the Bright Future Scholarship Program. A lot of students, parents, teachers, families still do not know about the Bright Future Scholarship Program. So it is very important to us and this wonderful team and department under strategic partnerships to get the word out about Bright Futures and the other opportunities that could be awarded to these students across the state of Florida. So, first and foremost, you must, live and reside in the state of Florida. So you must be a high school senior to qualify or apply for Bright Futures. And then there are some other qualifications for each level of Bright Futures. So there are 4 tiers to the Bright Future Scholarship Program. There is the Florida Academic, there is the Florida Medallion, but two scholarships that go really unnoticed or not talked about as much, or we simply don't have a lot of testimonials. And what that means is stories from students that actually have bright futures on Gold Seal CAPE and Gold Seal vocational recipients. So here we want to just kind of share and go over the Gold Seal CAPE and the Gold Seal Vocational Scholarship. So for Gold Seal CAPE is no GPA requirement, and I think this one is the reason why I get so um, excited and just like willing to share more information about it, because to me it just seems like a no-brainer that like almost any student could potentially get the Gold Seal CAPE scholarship, because for one, a lot of the schools across the state have CAPE. They have CAPE courses already embedded into their schools. So a lot of the students might already be on that track, or maybe have taken a course or two that they like and didn't realize that there was a track in order for them to graduate and move forward in this career field. So there is in that bullet, no GPA requirement. There are still the 30 volunteer service hours. You can also get 100 work pay hours to go towards that, or a combination of 100 total hours to showcase that you've done some community service or, work towards that. And that's something that just got passed in legislation. So they're opening the door, they hear the students' concerns, and they really try to make sure that every student is covered with the way that they show up for their community or for themselves. So 5 CAPE post-secondary credit hours, no required ACT or CLT or SAT score. There are the 75 hour of volunteer service required for students entering grade 9 for 24-25. So basically what that means is every fiscal year, the legislation could change. The funding award could also be changed as well. So we really tell students and teachers and educators, all of you in this space, to please ensure that the students are talking with their counselor, because the counselor is going to have the most updated information. We also have a website that shares a lot of information that we try to update regularly, but the counselor is going to be the student's best friend when it comes to getting that knowledge and information about these scholarships. So if you finish an associate in science degree that transfers to your Bachelor of Science, you can receive funding for up to 60 more credit hours to earn your bachelor's. So again, it is helping students to be able to continue on their path to education. And some of the common majors, because we find that it's a little bit difficult to tell the difference between CAPE and vocational. So some of the common credit hours and majors for the CAPE scholarship is business administration and criminal justice. So if you do finish your associate in applied science, you can get funding for up to 60 more credit hours towards a bachelor of applied science. And some of those are nursing, radiology technology, and then dental hygiene. So these students are able to continue on their path as they start in high school, right? Let's say you graduate with your AS, you're wanting to continue in that path to go to nursing school. Bright Futures CAPE can continue to help you achieve those goals. That takes us over to vocational. That one does have an ACT, SAT requirement, and they also introduced the PERT. So you'll see that down at the bottom. 3.0 weighted GPA, 3 full credits in CTE. So that's career and technical education courses. And then there's a scale. We talked a little bit about this in one of our trainings. So there's a Bright Futures scale, and then there's the scale for like that you have at your class, like at your high school. So it's important, again, to talk to your counselor to make sure that you are fully understanding your GPA weighted and unweighted. So that 3.5 goes towards, that GPA in career and technical education courses. So the 30 volunteer hours still remains over here. You must achieve whatever that, required minimum is for the ACT, SAT, and the PERT, as you can see below, for your, school year, based on the legislative session that comes around. So just again, quick overview is that the Florida Lottery is a primary funding source of the Florida Bright Future Scholarship Program. It is a merit-based scholarship that students that reside in Florida can achieve and can get to pay for their tuition and next steps in their academic careers as they graduate from high school. You must be a high school senior. There are 4 tiers to Bright Futures that you can get. Florida Academic, which covers 100%. Florida Medallion, it covers 75%. And then there's Florida Gold Seal CAPE that we just covered. And then there's Gold Seal Vocational Scholarship that we just covered as well. All have separate requirements for each one of them, but they all can help the students in achieving their post-secondary goals as they continue to navigate through life. And we want Florida's best and brightest to stay in Florida. So the Florida Bright Future Scholarship is only for Florida's schools, whether that be a 2-year or 4-year or some of the technical colleges and things like that. And last thing I just want to mention is that if a student was to take their Florida Medallion 75% scholarship and use it at a 2-year university, it would cover 100% of their tuition. So I hope that was helpful. It was a lot, but I hope it was helpful.
Thank you, Shakira. I appreciate that. Does anyone have any questions for Shakira? We'll have another opportunity for questions later on, but we have a small group. So if anyone has any questions for Shakira, feel free to come off mute or drop them in the chat. Okay. Well, if you think of them as we're on, feel free to drop them in the chat, and I'm sure Shakira is happy to answer those questions
Yeah.
as you think of them. But I'm gonna go ahead and reshare my screen. I think you have to stop sharing, Shakira, for me to get my slides back up. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah. All right, let me pull back up my slides. Alrighty, so thank you again to the Florida Lottery. We appreciate them for giving us this opportunity to work on these career maps. And it is so important, and we truly appreciate them speaking about bright futures so that students feel able to participate in some of these careers that we'll talk about and leverage and take advantage of those scholarship opportunities so that they can achieve some of these careers that we will talk about. So moving forward, I'm going to do a little introduction to us at Florida After School if you aren't familiar with who we are. So at Florida After School, we believe that all children and youth should have high quality out of school time opportunities that inspire them to change the world. Our mission for doing this is through several key areas. We promote quality standards and best practices for out of school time programs through technical assistance and trainings. We collaborate with public and private partners to share resources with programs such as Bright Futures and the Florida Lottery. We do advocacy work for policies and funding to help expand the availability and accessibility of programs, as well as engage with direct service providers through webinars, trainings, peer learning communities to truly ensure that our efforts are representative and truly effective for those who do serve children, youth, and families. So jumping right into now thinking of a little bit about space. And I want to ask you all, we'll have some, discussions throughout the webinar today. And feel free to use the chat or come off mute if you're feeling brave. But I want to ask you, what is something about space that you are curious about?
So I grew up during the early days of the space race. So I can remember sitting on the floor in kindergarten and watching on black and white TV um, the rockets blast off. So and I also always had this thing about rocks, and I remember them bringing back space, like space rocks. So I always wondered, what does the terrain look like on different planets?
Yeah, for sure. And I think one of the careers that is on our maps that we'll talk about a little bit are planetary geologists, which really focus on those rocks and using the terrain of the moon and other, interstellar planets to understand the history of our solar system. So that's for sure. Yeah. The terrain is something that's super interesting, as well as that's probably something that, the kiddos in your programs or that are in your life are also curious about. So thank you, Anna. I see Daryl said in the chat, I am curious about space flight and how to be able to survive in space. Yes, for sure. Space flight is huge, especially right now with the Artemis mission finishing up. So for sure. And with Project Hail Mary and space is very big right now. Thank you everybody for sharing. I would like to share my little curiosity and whatnot with space. And before I started doing some of this work around space, I honestly didn't really know that much. And so I've just become curious about really everything about space, about understanding space flight and kind of the physics behind it all. My background is not necessarily in STEM, but I've been able to learn a lot through this opportunity, so I truly appreciate the opportunity to do this project. As well as we like to think about this question because what we've heard from some of our industry experts and some of those individuals is that the best way to get youth interested in STEM and especially space is through encouraging them to be curious. So that doesn't even have to be like academic conversations, just using maybe some fun examples. Like if you were stranded in space, what were some objects you would like to have? Or using current events like Artemis or the Project Hail Mary movie to encourage them to just be curious. So that's why we like to start with this question. We're going to jump right into the content. And the overarching idea of these career maps and the goal of these career maps is to recognize that everybody has a place in space. And the space industry is so much more than engineers or astronauts. And engineers and astronauts, they are so essential and so important, But we really like to expose everybody to the variety of careers that are in space so that youth can see themselves in the space industry or in STEM. So they realize that everybody has a place in space. And without having knowledge of these variety of careers and the variety of academic requirements for these careers, youth might just realize or think that space or STEM just isn't for them. So why space? Why are we talking about space? Of course, space is big right now in all the news and all of the, media and whatnot. But we like to discuss about space because it has high projected career growth of all careers. The range for careers in space grow change from 5 to 34% projected growth from 2024 to 2034. And for some context, the average career growth is about 4%. So if it's above that, then it's higher than the average career. So 34% is huge, and we'll talk about some specifics on what careers specifically in space show the most high promise and high growth. But we really like to expose youth and expose staff so that they know what kind of things to, promote in their youth and to facilitate that curiosity and that discussion about. And like I said, astronauts are pretty well known as a career in space, but there's a huge variety of workers in such as technical workers, mechanics, there's business professionals, there's educators. There's more than just those astronauts or those engineers. And so we really like to share and advocate and speak on these so that youth in your programs can think that they have that place in space, even if they're not necessarily a math person, or they don't think they're the science person, or they don't want to go to a lot of schooling. And so they can realize that no matter what, they have a place in space. The purpose of these career maps is again to just expose your youth to a variety of careers. But in order to be able to expose youth to these careers, you must first be aware of the careers. I know when I started this project, I was not aware of some of all the careers that we'll talk about. And youth might even feel overwhelmed on where to start preparing for a career. And so these career maps can be a great first step to building awareness of different careers and how they can achieve those. And they can show them that the variety of careers that are available are, they are available and they are achievable. And so you can show them some differences in those careers as well. And there's some variety of ways that you can use these career maps, and we'll talk about this a little bit in our collaborative discussion as well. But you can use these career maps as flyers, you can print and share them in your program. You can organize community STEM career nights around the careers, partnering with local agencies or career technical education programs or community colleges to host those career nights and really leveraging your community partnerships. As well as you can use these flyers as training tools for your program staff. So not just the youth, but encouraging all the adults that work with your youth and your staff to better be able to expose youth to these careers by using them as training tools or sharing this recording as well. You can also use these career maps as discussion tools, which we'll see in our collaborative discussion portion. You can share them with youth and ask some questions about what do you think about these careers? Are there any ones that you think are missing? Really using them as a tool. And similar with the STEM career nights, you can connect youth to local career professionals in some of these different areas. If you happen to live anywhere in Florida where there is some industry professionals, you can connect them with those individuals or even have like higher level college students, like upper level college students, or local businesses, manufacturing businesses, really just connecting whoever's local to your community and in your network to expose youth to these careers. You can also have youth create their own career maps, not just on space or STEM, but you can use these maps as an example to help the youth create their own career maps and think of the different steps that are needed to achieve whatever career that they would be interested in. All right, so we're going to jump in really to the content heavy piece, and it's going to be a lot of information, so I appreciate you all for being here. And since we are a small group, if at any time you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat or just come off mute, and I'm happy to answer them. There'll also be a spot for questions at the end of this. So we're going to really go through each of these different areas of the career maps in the space industry. We're going to go through these first three areas. We have not quite been able to flesh out the fourth career area, and we're hoping to be able to commit to that project a little bit more in the future. But for this project with the Florida Lottery, we did the first three career maps, and we'll talk through these. So, first, there's technicians and mechanics, and we'll talk about some of those different careers in that area. There's engineering and scientists, which might be some of the more traditional STEM career paths that you might think of. There's data and IT, which we'll talk about those as well. So this is the overview of one of our maps, what they look like. And at the end of the training, I will drop all of the PDFs from our website so that you can look at all the career maps and download and print and share however you think you would use them. So again, these are the four major areas that we've found of careers in the space industry. So there's those technicians and mechanics, engineering and scientists, data and IT, and logistics and those business services. So for this area and this project, we focused on the first three, and we hope to have the last career map sometime in the future in another project, maybe. So first, we're going to start with technicians and mechanics. So these are careers that include hands-on work, skilled trades, and using specialized equipment like tools or any kind of equipment. And a lot of these careers do not involve a four-year college program. Instead, many of them require a high school diploma or a two-year certificate or trade skill program. And this is why it's so important to expose youth to some of those maybe more underrepresented Bright Future scholarships, like the vocational scholarships, so that youth realize that they can achieve these careers and attend some of these two-year programs and earn some of the high-paying dollars that we'll see in a second. And it's important really to share these specific careers with youth so that they realize that not all STEM careers involve lengthy schooling. If a youth just isn't interested in school, they can realize that they can still be in STEM. So how can you prepare youth for a career as a technician or a mechanic? And there's several different ways. So first, focusing on elementary aged youth, you can teach them patience, as well as provide them activities that require them to work with their hands. As well as teaching safety, it's so important to kind of learn some of those foundational skills, especially when they're young. In that middle school age group, you can start to provide them some information or partner with local CTE or community college programs to provide some wood shop or other kind of like local or hands-on classes or programs. You can provide STEM projects such as Legos or robotics, as well as you can create a robotics or a STEM club. And with the older youth, with that high school aged youth, this is when it's really important to share information about local technical programs as well as opportunities like the Bright Future Scholarships so that they can maybe start to take some of those required CTE courses or some of those other courses that they would need to in high school. And again, you can partner with local communities or trade schools to showcase these different careers as well as they can hear from them and hear from their experiences. So who are technicians and mechanics? So there's four main areas of this first area, and those are welders, technicians, machinists, and mechanics. And these individuals are essential to the space industry. Oftentimes, what we've heard from industry as we've worked on this project is that these are really who they need the most. Astronauts are great and engineers are wonderful, but they need these people to do this mechanic work and the welding and whatnot. So first, what do welders do in the space industry? So welders as a whole combine pieces of metal. And so for in the space industry, this can be rockets, spacecrafts, other kind of machines for rockets. It's so essential because those pieces can't get together without having a welder. Machinists make things such as like special machines or any kind of machines. And for the space industry, this could be things like spacecrafts, rockets, satellites, those kind of things. So they really create those machine kind of products. Mechanics work on and repair systems and things. Specifically in the space industry, this includes repairing rockets, fuel systems, satellites, other spacecrafts. There's a variety of mechanics, especially in the space industry. There are sheet metal mechanics, assembly, payload, cooling, and machinery mechanics. And technicians is the hugest area of this first area of technicians and mechanics. So we like to highlight and show just some different areas of technicians in the space industry because there's so many different specific careers in this field. First, there are aerospace engineering technicians, and these individuals support, test, and design aircrafts and spacecrafts. There are payload and satellite technicians who support, test, and design payloads and satellites. There's avionic technicians who install, test, and adjust equipment and systems involved in aircrafts. There's launch pad technicians who maintain and support those systems for launch operations. And there's also production and manufacturing technicians who build the essential electrical and mechanical components for launches and for spacecrafts that need these other space industry projects. And they support product development. So, like I said, the industry really needs technicians and mechanics, and there's a lot of high career growth in this area and in this field. And careers in this field are growing much higher than other careers. So, specifically with aerospace technicians, they're projected to grow 8% from 2024 to 2034. Cooling mechanics, who are projected to grow 8% as well. Machinery mechanics, who are projected to go 13%, which is really high. And aircraft and avionic mechanics, who are projected to go 5%. And whenever we share those career maps, at the end of this, you can look through those and you can see the different wages that are with each of these different careers. Which I will stop sharing my screen and just go ahead and drop the link to our website that has these career maps so that if you wish to look through these as I'm going through them today, you can. So give me just a second. My internet is being quite slow today, but resources, STEM. All right. So I'm going to drop the link to our STEM page on our website. And if you scroll down, you'll find the career maps if you wish to download them and look through them as we are today. And so you'll just look for the STEM career maps section on that area. All right, I'm going to reshare my screen. All right, so our next key area of the career maps are engineers and scientists. And these individuals figure out why and how things happen. So this also includes public-facing careers such as educators. And many of these careers often involve a bachelor's degree or higher. There's a huge variety of careers in this area, such as engineers, scientists, and researchers, as well as those educators. So, how can you prepare youth for a career as an engineer or as a scientist? Specifically with the elementary age, you can encourage curiosity, as we talked about STEM, develop some activities around Legos or blocks, really just starting to learn that engineering process, as well as scheduling field trips or partnering with local museums. A lot of museums or planetariums have like mobile planetariums that they can bring to your program. So you can partner with them to organize those field trips. For middle school aged youth, this can include creating robotics or some kind of STEM club, sharing books or videos. There's a ton of videos on YouTube, especially with Artemis happening. And so you can share books about space and famous scientists. You can partner with local agencies to host career chats where they talk about their careers and do kind of a Q&A style event for your youth. Also, in our newsletter, we regularly share some resources about career chats through a variety of agencies. I'll also share some resources at the end of this, which NASA always shares some virtual career chats that are also helpful. With high school age youth in this area, you can host or provide tutoring for some of those essential skills for engineers or scientists like physics, chemistry, math. You can also encourage participation in national STEM challenges, which I can provide you some information on those as well, and share some volunteer information for local science centers or museums so they can learn and start to be in that role. So, who are engineers and scientists? So, there's these three main career fields. There's engineers, scientists and researchers, and educators. And there's huge varieties in each of these areas. So, we'll go through each of these and share some different careers that are in each of the areas. So, what kinds of engineers are in the space industry? So there are aerospace engineers who design, develop, and test rockets and satellites or other spacecrafts. There's computer hardware engineers who research, design, and develop code and computer systems that actually control spacecrafts. There are mechanical engineers who build moving parts of spacecrafts or other aircrafts. There's also electrical engineers who really design and develop the electrical systems and devices for spacecrafts and aircrafts. And it's so important to share these because I know before I did this project, I didn't necessarily know what engineers actually did. And so it's so important to share these different careers with youth as well. There is promising career growth in the field of engineering. For instance, aerospace engineers are projected to grow 6%, computer hardware at 7%, mechanical is at the highest in this area, which is at 9%, and electronics is at 7%. And we really like to share these so that if you do have a youth, especially an older youth, who is interested in engineering, you can maybe provide them some guidance on what careers are expected to grow the most. So if you have a young person who is interested in being an engineer, you can share with them that perhaps mechanical engineering is like has the most promising career growth. So the next area in this, area are scientists and researchers. And there's a huge variety of scientists and researchers outside of just what is on this slide. There are atmospheric scientists who analyze the Earth's atmosphere and space systems and really make sure that the atmosphere is safe for space launch. There are environmental scientists who help regulate and manage the environmental impact of aerospace operations. There are physicists who study and perform experiments on space, time, energy, and matter. There's astronomers who study planets and other celestial bodies. And there's also, like I talked about earlier, those planetary geologists who research the origins of bodies in space to better understand the history of our solar system through like moon rocks and space rocks and that kind of thing. One interesting thing that we like to share, though, is from doing this research and this information on creating these career maps, these are often the fields that we think of the most. We most often think of science and research when we think of STEM. And of course, those are a huge part in STEM, but despite these careers being the most commonly known in the space industry outside of engineering, these are growing slower or as fast as average when compared to all occupations. So we just like to share that because we thought it was interesting. Next, in this area, we have educators, which is another area that often is forgotten in this space field, but it is so important so that the general public learns more and knows more about the space industry. So there's first planetarium directors, and these individuals teach about the night sky through shows and hands-on activities or work with museums to help educate their public about space. There are space curators and educators who create program activities and educate the public about space. There's, of course, professors who teach STEM courses in a college setting. And there's also curriculum developers and instructional coordinators who can design educational materials about space. These individuals can often partner or work with some of the big space industry individuals like NASA to create some kind of public-facing materials since they have that background in instructional design and curriculum development. And there is promising growth in this field as well. The highest growing fields in this area are museum curators, which are projected to grow at 6%, and professors are expected to grow at 7%. All right, our last area in career map that we will talk about is data and IT. So data and IT professionals ensure that whatever data is collected from space missions and from launches is actually able to be turned into useful information. So they ensure that any information that is collected remains organized and easy to access. And many of these careers do involve a bachelor's degree or higher. So how can you prepare youth for a career in data and IT? With elementary aged youth, you can provide problem-solving activities such as puzzles or games. They don't even necessarily have to be data related, just really learning those foundational problem-solving skills. You can also teach basic coding with platforms like Scratch or code.org. There's a ton of free and inexpensive resources out there for that elementary age to learn basic coding. Can also teach basic computer skills, such as computer literacy or learning platforms like Microsoft or Google. With middle school aged youth, you can provide or share some information on local robotics or coding clubs. You can also start to teach some more foundational coding knowledge, such as coding languages, such as Python or HTML. Those are often the ones that we've heard from industry that are the most impactful and the most useful in the real world. And you can also continue to grow your computer skills through computer literacy training. And just like with some of the other careers, when we get to the high school area, we're really focusing on preparation. And so you can host tutoring in math. You can provide or share information about coding, computer science, or robotics classes, even partnering with community colleges or career technical education programs. So youth can really learn some specific skills around this area. You can also create opportunities for students to develop a portfolio of STEM projects. So maybe it's a basic website that they created using HTML or a robotics project they completed, but just having a portfolio of their projects that they have done. So who are data and IT professionals? So this includes data scientists, intelligence specialists, and engineers. And these individuals are really essential for the space industry and are often overlooked as well because it's essential that this information, that research is understandable and organized. So, first, there's kind of these four general careers. There's data analysts and data scientists who turn raw data that is collected into useful information for engineers, researchers, decision makers. There's also intelligence analysts who plan and protect cybersecurity measures for computers, networks, or systems. There's also data engineers who organize and manage virtual systems to store and secure data, like cloud systems or any kind of data management system. There's also computer engineers, which we saw in the engineering area as well, who design and build the computers and that software that the space launch systems actually use. And out of all of the career fields in the space industry, these are expected to grow the highest. And they're expected to grow much faster than other careers. Specifically, data scientists are projected to grow 34% from 2024 to 2034, and information security analysts are projected to grow 29% from 2024 to 2034. So you can see this high career growth in these fields as they're often overlooked, and especially in this day and age with AI and all of those other things that are coming to fruition, it is essential that there are individuals who are able to correctly analyze and use data. And it's also those computer hardware engineers who are projected to grow at 7%. So out of all of the careers in the space industry, these are expected to grow the highest. All right. So before we, do some discussions, I want to ask you all, do you have any questions about these maps? And then we'll do some discussions to kind of process our thoughts. That's okay. We'll have a spot for questions as well as we start doing this kind of processing piece. So I'll ask you all, and I will invite you to come off of mute and chat about these career maps. We really like to hear from you all and from the industry and from, the after-school professionals who would be using these maps about them, and we value your feedback. So we want to ask you all first, and feel free to type in the chat or come off mute if you're feeling brave. But I want to ask you, what is one thing that surprised you about the career maps? Anyone feeling brave?
Hello.
Maybe. Yes, yes, sorry, I couldn't hear you, but now I can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So, what is one thing that surprised me? Being a former STEM teacher myself, I've always thought that exposure was key.
Mhm.
in relation to understanding how far a child can go. It's been proven that if you just, give them an introduction to opportunities, that self-discovery often, sends them a little bit further. I think the frustration that I get is we limit our kids early in the opportunities such as vocational learning. And sometimes, being educated, you become naive to the fact that only education, going to a school, so to speak, is the only way to go. So if there's one thing that surprises me, and if I would tell other educators, it would be to try to push children to be well-rounded and give them more opportunities of exposure, um, not in relation to a specific job, but just learning different things and being tactile learners.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, Daryl. Thank you for sharing. That's valuable. Yes, for sure. Creating well-rounded youth and supporting well-rounded learning, not just with space careers or any specific career, like you said. That's why we talk about things like those career nights, not just with space, but having youth hear from individuals, especially individuals that might not have had a very linear path to where they've gotten to now. And a lot of these careers, especially some of those technician and mechanics, they don't require any schooling. And so it's important for youth to see that and for youth to be exposed to this huge variety to realize that their interests and their skill sets can turn into a valuable career. So thank you, Daryl. I really appreciate that. Any other thoughts? It's okay. Well, we have a couple more questions. What is something that you are a little still unclear on, if there's anything in the career maps that you would like some more information on? And if there's nothing, that means I did my job great. But I'm sure there's something.
Kayla, I'll do one more. I
Thank you.
don't
I
want to speak
appreciate
for
it.
everybody.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
So one thing that I would say is, how we as advocates in after school, how are we supposed to expose our children when federal dollars are steadily decreasing and you have all these tremendous programs to give those extended learning opportunities? You can't do it without the federal dollars. So how are we to give those experiences so they can try to achieve in um, space travel or being an astronaut or whatever have you?
Yeah, for sure, Daryl. And that's a huge question, especially with, the current atmosphere and funding is a huge issue right now. And so it's so important. And that's why we always try to share and advocate for free resources that programs can use. For instance, when we talk about promoting that curiosity, is there's a ton of virtual field trips out there that don't require any transportation or any cost at all. And there's a lot of them through NASA and some other organizations that I would be happy to share with you all in a follow-up email. And so there's a lot of those free resources, some of those coding resources, and trying to, learn yourself so that you can help the youth. But a lot of those programs are, you can learn with the youth, and you don't have to have a background in coding to teach your youth how to code. Or, like I said, those virtual field trips, there's a lot of free activities. There's a NASA STEM engagement newsletter that I'll share with you all that I'm personally subscribed to, and it's where I get a lot of my resources. But they share a ton of free programming and free resources because it is so true in that, sure, it'd be great to take your kids to the Kennedy Space Center, but there's no funding for that, then it just can't happen. And you're already so limited on the activities that you have time to do. So that's why we really try to integrate and share some free and easier to implement resources. I hope that answered your question, Daryl.
Yes, it did.
Awesome. Thank you. Any other thoughts from anyone else? And I know I often think of questions after meetings end, so at the end of this, I will drop my contact information into the chat as I'm welcome to be a resource to you all as well. I think I have one more question. But what other career areas or industries would you be interested in learning more about? I've talked about how we hope to create that last career map and about those business professionals in the space industry. And we really, truly, I enjoyed making the career maps, and I think they are so valuable as a tool for individuals to use. So I want to ask you all as we truly, we organize everything we do around the needs of the field. So, what are some other career maps or industries that you would be interested in learning more about outside of space? And feel free to drop in chat as well if you don't feel comfortable coming off mute. That's okay. I know I personally, what we've heard from other previous sessions is people would like to learn more about agriculture-based careers, especially because agriculture is huge in Florida. So I know I would like to explore some agriculture careers and develop some career maps if the project is able, as well as perhaps careers around AI, since AI is huge, and understanding what careers exist around that. Any other thoughts? That's okay. So I just thank you for being here, and I invite you to subscribe to our newsletter. I will drop a link for a post-session survey if you have a few minutes and would like to take it. I'll also send everything in an email, so you'll get tons of resources from me. I really would like to be a resource to you all. And I thank you again for being here. And I will stop and see if anyone has any lasting questions for either me or Shakira since she's still on here. And yeah, so if you have any questions about these career maps, this training, how to facilitate and support, exposure to STEM careers in your programs, let me know. And or if you have any Bright Futures questions for Shakira, feel free to come off mute or stay on and drop them in the chat. Otherwise, you all are good to go, and I appreciate you for being here.